Hi, I'm Nina. Here's a thought. Something enormous is happening. Across 3 different countries, in 16 cities, 48 national teams are chasing a single gold trophy. Billions of people are watching. It is one of the largest events humanity has ever staged. But the real story of how it began is far stranger than that spectacle suggests. Because this tournament started as a fragile, almost foolish idea, an idea so small that the first time it was held, most of the invited teams simply refused to come. And the only way to reach it was by boat. Let me take you back to before any of this existed. Start in the early 1900s. Football was spreading across the world like a rumor, but there was no true world championship. The closest thing was the Olympic Games, where football was played. But the Olympics had a strict rule. Only amateurs could compete, players who were not paid a wage. And by the 1920s, the best footballers in many countries were professionals. So the Olympic tournament could never honestly crown the best team on Earth, because the best players were not even allowed to enter it. Do you see the problem that created? It meant the world had its favorite game and no honest way to find its greatest team. 2 Frenchmen set out to fix that. The first was Jules Rimet, the president of FIFA, the organization that governs world football, which had been founded back in 1904. The second was a determined administrator named Henri Delaunay, who argued for years that the sport had outgrown the Olympics and needed a championship all its own, open to professionals and amateurs alike. Rimet became the dreamer who pushed it into reality. The trophy would one day carry his name. In 1930, they finally did it, the very first World Cup, and they handed it to a small country in South America, Uruguay. Why Uruguay? 2 reasons. The Uruguayans had won the Olympic football tournament twice, so they were seen as the best on the planet, and 1930 was the 100th anniversary of their independence. They even built a brand new stadium for the occasion and named it the Centenario. But here is where the whole thing almost fell apart. To reach Uruguay from Europe in 1930, there were no jet planes. You traveled by ship across the entire Atlantic Ocean, a voyage of weeks. For European clubs and players, it was expensive, exhausting, and far too long to be away. So most of them simply said no. In the end, only 4 European teams made the journey. 13 nations turned up in total. Imagine that. The first ever World Cup, the seed of the biggest event on the planet, and the powerhouses of Europe mostly stayed home. Uruguay won that first tournament in front of their own people, and a strange, small, beautiful idea had survived its first breath. Now let me tell you about the trophy, because its story is almost impossible to believe. The original prize was a small golden statue of the goddess of victory, sculpted by a Frenchman named Abel Lafleur. In time, it was renamed the Jules Rimet Trophy, after the man who made the whole thing real, and it carried a remarkable rule. FIFA decided that any nation who won the World Cup 3 times would get to keep the trophy forever. So this little golden figure became one of the most precious objects in sport. And it kept landing in trouble. The first crisis came during the Second World War, when the tournament was suspended and the world was tearing itself apart. An Italian football official named Ottorino Barassi feared the trophy would be looted by occupying soldiers. So he quietly took it out of its bank vault and hid it in a shoebox under his own bed, where it stayed for years until the fighting ended. The most prized object in football survived the deadliest war in history inside a shoebox. Then, in 1966, while it was on display in England, the trophy was stolen outright. The whole country panicked. And a week later, a small dog named Pickles, out on an ordinary walk with his owner, sniffed it out from beneath a hedge wrapped in newspaper. A dog rescued the soul of the game. But the story does not end happily. In 1970, Brazil won the World Cup for the 3rd time, and so, by the rule, they were allowed to keep the trophy for good. Then, in 1983, that same golden statue was stolen once more, this time in Brazil, and it was never recovered. Most believe it was melted down for its gold. The first great prize of football, the one a dog once saved and a war could not destroy, simply vanished from the world. The trophy that captains lift today is an entirely different one, a newer design by an Italian sculptor named Silvio Gazzaniga, 2 figures holding up the earth. When you watch someone raise it overhead, you are looking at the replacement for a treasure that was lost forever. So how did this fragile idea, with its boats and its stolen prize, grow into the giant it is today? The answer is mostly a single word: television. The 1954 World Cup, held in Switzerland, was the first to be broadcast on TV. Suddenly, you did not have to be inside the stadium. You could watch the world's best players from your own living room. And once that door swung open, the tournament grew and grew. In later decades, satellites carried the matches live to every continent at once, and a single final could pull in more than a billion viewers. Think about what that means. A billion people, in different time zones and different languages, all leaning toward the same screen. As more of the world watched, more nations wanted to be part of it, and the field of teams kept expanding to make room. For a long time, only 16 teams qualified for the finals. Then, in 1982, it grew to 24. Then in 1998, it jumped to 32, the size most of us grew up knowing. Each expansion let more countries dream of actually being there, of hearing their own anthem played on the world's biggest stage. And the dreaming was always the real point. A World Cup is not only about the football. It is one of the very few moments when the entire planet looks at the same thing at the same time. A tiny country can knock out a giant, and for 90 minutes, millions of strangers who share a flag feel exactly the same heartbeat. There is almost nothing else in human life that does that. Have you ever felt an entire nation hold its breath together? The World Cup is the machine that builds that feeling again and again. The scale had been growing even before the cameras arrived. In 1950, Brazil built a colossal stadium called the Maracanã and packed in what may be the largest crowd ever to watch a single football match, somewhere near 200,000 people, and it did not all run smoothly across the years. The tournament was canceled completely in 1942 and again in 1946 because the world was at war. It has been shadowed by politics, by money, by scandal, and by grief. It is a human invention, so it carries all of our flaws along with our hopes. The Women's World Cup began in 1991 and has since grown into a giant of its own. The map of the game simply kept widening decade after decade. Which brings us back to right now. The tournament happening today, in 2026, is being hosted by 3 nations at the same time for the first time ever, spread across the United States, Mexico, and Canada. And it has expanded once again to 48 teams, the largest field in its history, with more than 100 matches across 39 days. The longest and biggest World Cup that has ever been held. From 13 teams who arrived by ocean liner, to 48 nations and billions of watching eyes in less than a single century. So the next time you watch a match in this tournament, remember what you are really seeing. Not just a game. You are watching the grown-up form of a fragile idea that almost no one believed in. An idea 2 Frenchmen fought for, that a dog once helped save, that a man hid in a shoebox to protect, that survived a world war and a stolen trophy, and an ocean that nearly kept everyone away. It could so easily never have happened at all. Right now, something enormous is happening across 3 countries and 48 teams. And now you know it all began with a boat, a long-shot dream, and a tournament the world very nearly forgot to attend.